Okay, on Podcasting Softly this week, we are in the presence of greatness, ladies and gentlemen. We have the king himself, King Cohen, Larry Cohen, the writer, director, producer of several films, and also a lot of TV. He's also a famous screenwriter as well. Among his credits, Bone, God Told Me To, The Stuff, It's Alive, Return to Salem's Lot, Wicked Stepmother, Perfect Strangers, Special Effects. He wrote Maniac Cop, and a whole bunch of other things that we're going to talk about, as well as the most excellent film by Stephen Mitchell, which is a portrait or a visual biography, if you will, of the life of Larry King Cohen. Larry, it is such an honour, like I said, as a fan, first, to have you on the program. Thank you for being with us.
Well, that's great. It's great to be king.
It's good to be the king, right?
Yes.
Totally. Anyway, Larry, I've been looking at all the other interviews you've done because I hate to have a guest on and just rehash a lot of the stuff that they've already been asked. So hopefully I'll avoid too many of the often trodden questions. Suffice to say, I haven't seen the whole film. I very much want to, but I've been allowed exclusive little glimpses at part of it. Now, what's it like, I guess, to look back at your career in Toto, and you know, just for you, I mean, because a lot of these documentaries sometimes are done after the filmmaker has sadly passed away, but you're still with us. So what's it like to take a trip down memory lane and watch it all unfold?
Well, you know, I don't really think much about the past.
Right.
I'm always thinking about the future. I'm still writing stuff and trying to put pictures together in television series. So I don't dwell on the past that much. I enjoyed. I saw the picture only once up in Montreal,
right,
where it won the best documentary film award. So. And I'm headed off to Austin, Texas later this week for a film festival there. I'll probably see it for a second time, but I don't remember much about it. I was so, disoriented seeing stuff about myself juxtaposed with the editing and stuff that was in there and stuff that wasn't in there. So I really had no opinion when it was all over, except wow, you know, a lot of work went into it. There was no question about that.
Sure.
And they got some wonderful people to participate. Martin Scorsese, J.J. Abrams. You know, there was a whole roster of good filmmakers who were kind enough to contribute something.
Sure.
And I was surprised at what some of them said.
One of the one that I was very surprised by, because he is such a private person, was the appearance of Yaphet Kotto.
Yes, well, I've seen Yaphet over the years a few times, and he's always been a very, very complimentary. He loved working with me. He thought the performance he gave in the film Bone was the best thing he ever did on film.
Right.
And I tend to agree with him. And as with many of the actors that I worked with, they came away with a very pleasant experience. They could tell I liked actors and I liked them, and they responded. Many directors don't like the actors very much. They're wary of them, and it's kind of adversarial, and not with me. With me, it's a team effort. We have a good time together. I try and entertain them and relax them and make them a part of the whole procedure. So they come away with a very warm, pleasant experience that they carry with them. I mean, Yaphet worked with me 40 years ago, so they carried that with him all these years. So I was very pleased that he participated and that he's still around.
It was great to hear him on there. As I was saying to Steve, another actor that came on to comment, and you worked with her in Wicked Stepmother, was Barbara Carrera.
Yes, beautiful Barbara Carrera.
Yeah,
beautiful inside and outside both. She's a very fine person.
Yeah, she was my first screen crush, but sadly not from your film, but from another film. She did a Disney film called Condor Man, where she played a Russian spy. And
well, she's gorgeous. She was in James Bond. She had a terrific part in the James Bond movie with Sean Connery, and she's just lovely. But she's nothing in real life like what she is on the screen.
I can only imagine.
She's just delightful. The
Yeah.
first time I met her, she said, "Don't worry about me, about my wardrobe. I've got all these clothes in the closet that I've always wanted to wear, and I'll bring my own clothes, and I don't have to have a hairdresser. I do my own hair, and I do my own makeup." So it was just the opposite of what I expected from a diva, that she'd require all this care and additional personnel to take care of her. She was just such a great friend and such a wonderful companion.
Yes.
And one day she came with an outfit, and she said, "Oh, I forgot the belt." And she drove all the way back to Brentwood and got the belt all by herself and came back again. So, I mean, and she's just a regular person. I mean, just absolutely pleasant. I just had dinner with her a few months ago.
Oh, wow.
And she's as beautiful as ever.
Yeah, that's tremendous. But like you say, a lot of great people came out to pay tribute, and of course, there's all your wonderful work to look at. Some of the, I mean, like I said, I haven't seen the whole piece, and I'm very much looking forward to. But
well, I'm hoping that the movie will encourage people to rent or download some of my movies that are available on the internet.
Totally.
And a lot of them are on Netflix and other. And you can have them in your own home anytime you want them. You don't have to go to a theater and wait for them to be run. It's wonderful, the new systems that allow your pictures to be available for everybody to see.
Sure.
And I know there's a lot of my movies that haven't been seen by many people. So
that's true.
I hope that all these films have a new life because of the systems that have come into play. And that this documentary kind of gooses it all up.
Yes, it seems to be the trend with a lot of these retrospective documentaries. There was one, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it was about the era of exploitation films back in the 70s and 80s. And a lot of our young film-going audiences, I'm pretty sure, were not aware of a lot of the exploitation movies that were made here down under during the Mad Max years. But that documentary certainly reinvigorated an interest and a great resurgence in.
Well, it's wonderful because movies now are available. It used to be years ago you had to wait for a movie to come to a revival house.
Yes.
If they could find a print of it, and today everything is available, just like going to the public library, and all the books are there. These movies are right there for you, and. So I hope people will see them and let me know how they like them.
Awesome, yes. Well, Steve and I, when I interviewed Steve recently, we talked about mutual crossover, some of the films of yours that we loved equally. Of course, Q, The Winged Serpent, is one of them. But the other one that I didn't talk with Steve about, I was saving for you to talk to you about, was because it's me and my wife's favourite film of yours is The Stuff.
Yeah, well, many people do tell me that. We just came from a autograph show yesterday here in Burbank, and so many people came who are fans of the stuff. And so I'm always delighted when they show up and tell me how much they like that movie, particularly since it's probably 30 years old now, and people are still loving that film.
I love the great, the underlining sort of commentary that you put in there about... am I correct in saying consumerism?
Yes, that's exactly what the picture was about.
Yeah.
And this is going on today, I mean, tremendously, I mean, in America. They don't allow cigarette commercials on television anymore. No. So they've all been replaced by medication ads for pills that do this for you and do that for you. But there's always these tremendous side effects. And the ad for the medication is always followed by a disclaimer with all the side effects that may occur, including death. And I think it's like a comedy routine almost. If you want your skin cleared up by a medication, you have to risk death or a stroke. I mean, it is so ludicrous. And yet, that's what they're putting on the air, and that's what they're promoting, and that's what the companies are turning out in droves. All this medicine. It used to be you go to your doctor and get his opinion on something. Now it tells you on television what to ask your doctor for.
Yes.
Doctors are so afraid of getting a suit for malpractice that they'll just about give you anything.
Yeah.
Because they're afraid to deny you anything. But people are taking stuff that's really bad for them, and it's being promoted heavily by advertising, and that's what the stuff is all about.
Yeah.
You can sell people anything with advertising, even if it kills you.
Yeah, that's a sad fact, isn't it? But another group of films that I really love that you have a hand in was the Maniac Cop movies, which
you probably liked them better than I did.
Yeah.
They were the scripts were good. I thought the execution of the films was a little less in quality than when I was directing them myself. But people seem to like the concept of it and some of the gags.
Yeah.
And I wrote 3 of them. The last one was completely rewritten and ruined. The first 2 were okay, but the last one, I wouldn't advise anybody to see the last one.
That's a shame. I didn't know that. But anyway, sad stuff. I've always loved your version that you penned of the Body Snatchers. That was directed by Abel Ferrara.
Well, I came up with the concept of doing it on a military base, where everybody could be mistaken for a pod person.
Yes.
And I sold that to Warner Brothers and wrote a script. Yeah. But Abel Ferrara came on later, and they made a lot of changes.
Oh,
so there are several scenes in there that I wrote, but there's a lot of stuff in there that I didn't.
Yeah.
But it was a very good picture, actually, and a really good version of the Body Snatchers, certainly better than the one that was made later on. And I didn't think it got the proper release. Warner Brothers lost patience with Abel Ferrara because of his behavior on the set. And the fact that it went way over budget.
Yeah.
So they really dumped the picture. And then the reviews came out, and the reviews were just absolutely glowing. And it was too late to go ahead and save the picture.
Yeah. There's another film that it was probably the film that I think I first saw your name attached to, first as a writer. And it was John Gilliman's El Condor, which had Jim Brown and Lee Van Cleef.
Yeah, sure.
And the man known to a lot of people as the Crying Indian, Iron Eyes Cody. I think that was probably the first film I remember seeing your name attached to. It's still a film that I love very much. Was El Condor.
I had written a lot of movies before that, but the company, National General, that was making the film, they called me up and said, listen, we were going to make this movie over in Almeria, Spain, and we built all the sets, but we don't like the script. And I wondered, can you go over to Spain and write us another screenplay based on the sets that have already been built?
Right.
And that can save the production. The crew is over there waiting to see if you can come over and save the picture. So I went over and wrote the script based on what was already built.
Right.
And it took me a few weeks to do it. They treated me like a king. Every minute I was feasted and taken to parties and dinners and honored. And they gave me statues. And they finally gave me a man in armor that said, the liberator of El Condor.
Oh, wow.
And when I left, my wife and I headed off to Spanish Morocco on a boat. And we left Almeria. There was fireworks on the pier to bid us goodbye. I was never treated so well in my entire life as when I saved the movie. Then I had to come back to the United States, and Lee Van Cleef didn't want to get on the plane because he didn't like the part. He thought it was. He was told by his producer Alberto Grimaldi, who did all his spaghetti westerns, that this part would ruin his career. So I had to meet with him, and he said they'll laugh at me. I said, but Lee, it's supposed to be. It's a comedy part. It's supposed to be funny. He said, it is? No. I didn't know that. Nobody told me that. I said, well, I'm telling you, this is kind of like, you're going to play a part like Bogart played in the Trail of the Sierra Madre, only it's a funny part.
Right.
And he said, oh, my God, I'll do it without my toupee. Right. I said, that's a wonderful idea. And he got on the plane the next day and went over there and did a very good job.
Yeah.
So that's when I realized I could deal with actors after that.
Yeah.
And I decided I better direct my own movies.
Yeah. What was Lee Van Cleef like in real life? Was he like his Was he far away from his screen persona, or?
Well, you know, he was a kind of, like many actors. When he first meets you, they're very suspicious and withdrawn,
Right.
and they don't trust you, you know.
Right.
And then it takes you just a little while to get past that mistrust. And I managed to do that in one lunch with Lee Van Cleef and got him on that plane.
Right.
And you know, then I realized, you know, you can reason with these people. You don't have to be afraid of the actors. You don't have to avoid them. You just have to deal with them and treat them like people. And that's what I started doing. I always got along very well with my cast.
Right.
Most of them loved me. So I don't think I had trouble with actors the first day sometimes because they figured you out trying to see if you're in authority, if you're the captain of the ship, or whether they can try to take away the steering mechanism from you. And you got to put them in their place and calm them down and make them realize that you know what you're doing, and all they got to do is follow your lead, and you're going to take good care of them. So I usually do that, even if I have to fire them. Usually they leave and come back at an hour and apologize, and then I never have any trouble with them for the rest of the movie.
Another actor that you work with that I always wanted to interview or talk to in some capacity, but sadly he passed away before I could do that. He was in God Told Me To. Your film was Richard Lynch.
Yes, well, Richard was, you know, I'd seen him in a picture called Scarecrow,
right.
where he beat Al Pacino nearly to death.
Right.
And I thought he'd be a good villain for me.
Yeah.
And he was, and we got along great. And one day he was changing in the dressing room, and I saw his body, which was all covered with scars.
Yeah.
He had set fire to himself as in a drug stupor. He had self-immolated, and when he survived, his whole body was covered with burns.
Right.
And I said, my God, you know, you're playing an alien. Can I have you play this without your shirt on? So it'll look like a makeup job. And
right.
so that was really Richard Lynch. And the big crevice in his chest was actually part of his scar tissue.
Wow.
I didn't create that. That was there. So all of that kind of predicated the whole idea that might be some reproductive organ.
Right, yeah.
And,
no, he was.
That wasn't in my original idea until I saw his actual body. And you know, usually when I see things as we're going along on a picture, I try and incorporate them into the story.
Yeah.
I can do that because I have absolute control of the film. I don't have to get approval from a studio or front office or from executives. Usually, if you needed to get an approval of any change, by the time they gave you the approval, it'd be too late to do it anyway. So. That's why I usually don't make pictures like that. I usually make them where I'm in the absolute control of every aspect of the film, and don't even I even select the wardrobe and the set decoration. I do everything.
Wow.
Like the editing and everything that's on there. That's why in my films the credits roll about 30 seconds. And when you go to movies now, the credits are 10 minutes at the end of the picture.
Yeah.
You've never seen so many people's names come up. And I can't believe how much employment they put out on making a movie because the credits keep rolling.
I know.
I don't know if anybody stays in the theater to watch them, but...
No. Yeah. Well, I mean, everybody's got an assistant nowadays, don't they?
Oh, it's unbelievable. And there's all these special effects houses. And there's never just one special effects company. It's 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And every one of them has an entire staff that has to be credited. So it just goes on and on and on. And I can't make movies like that. I can only make a movie where I'm in charge of the whole picture. I don't want to farm the movie out to a bunch of places.
What has it been like for you? Like having watched, like you came up obviously in the industry was a certain way. You worked in the industry, and it was a certain way. You've been there. You've been able to watch it change over these decades that you've worked. What has it been like watching the industry change from the inside?
Well, you know, people used to make very interesting films about characters and people and stories, and now it's all special effects. And so the special effects movies have become so popular. That's all the studios want to do is do a remake or a sequel or a spin-off or a new movie based on an old comic book. Yeah. There's very little originality today. You can't go in and convince anybody to make an original movie. All they want to know is what's it like. I say to them, it's not like anything. If it was like something else, I wouldn't have written it.
Yeah.
I only like to do something that's new and different. But then they look at you with a puzzled expression, because if they haven't seen it before, they don't know if they like it or not. That's the problem. It's the executives and the lack of talent at the heads of the studios, and the fact that everybody just wants to do sequels and remakes and unknown properties that have been around for a long time.
Right.
And, most of the remakes that are made of the old films are much bigger budgeted, but they're not as good as the originals.
No, very true. I know that they tried to remake one of yours not too long ago, the It's Alive.
Oh, that was such a dreadful movie. It was made in Bulgaria by a terrible company. And, I didn't even know they were making a picture until I found out about it, and they were already 10 days into shooting it. They hadn't paid me or anything.
Right.
I had to have lawyers descend upon them and try to close the picture down to get paid.
Yeah.
It was even the producers of the picture stopped me in Beverly Hills some months later and apologized and said they apologized for making such a dreadful movie out of my property.
Right,
but I didn't mind too much because nobody saw the picture.
Right.
I mean, it hardly contributed at all, and I wish they could have burned the negative.
Yeah, that's shocking. And I guess more shocking too that they didn't even bother to get your permission at all.
Well, we were negotiating a deal, but we never concluded, and the next thing I knew, they were already shooting the picture. So it was just, I don't know anybie else who would do such a thing. But
when I was doing
there's no end of lunatics out here.
No, I have no doubt. Someone once told me to survive in the film industry, you have to be a little bit crazy.
Well, I was a lot crazy, and still am. To make movies like shooting machine guns off the top of the Chrysler Building, or putting Andy Kaufman in the middle of the 5,000 police officers in the St. Patrick's Day parade and having him pull a gun. I mean, nowadays with all this terrorism and fear of it, we probably would have gotten ourselves shot. I'd probably be long dead or in jail.
Certainly arrested, that's for sure.
But you can't do that anymore.
No, not at all. One of the interesting revelations to come out of the parts of the documentary that I've seen was in typical independent director fashion, when they told you that the people were panicking and screaming when you were firing all the bullets up on the top of the roof, and all the shells, of course, are raining down. And they said, Larry, everyone's running and panicking. You said, quick, get a camera down there and film someone panicking.
Well, the truth was that I went down there and there was no one panicking.
Right.
So it was quite disappointing.
Yeah.
There was nobody. People were just walking by, looking up, and then walking on. There was no panic going on. Today there'd be a different story.
Oh,
if there were machine guns going off. Everybody would be fleeing for their lives.
Oh yeah, it would be all that. There'd be more news cameras and people fleeing.
Oh yes, we had enough news cameras over it.
Yeah.
People did think there was machine guns being fired at the United Nations building, and we did get on the front pages of the New York papers and on the local television stations. But it was completely unfounded, and there was no reason for it.
Yeah.
It just became one of those things that became escalated out of proportion.
Yeah. One of the things that Steve and I spoke about, and using your career as kind of like a template for it, is that Steve said the difference today is there are none of those sort of great cigar chomping moguls that, a director like yourself could wander into his office and say, hey, I want to make a picture about, a flying monster in New York, or I want to make a picture about, an ambulance, or I want to do this, and they would say, sure, how much is it going to cost? And you say, well, it's only going to cost X, In
those days, they had executives left from the old Hollywood days who could actually make a decision. They could actually give you a go-ahead to make a picture. Today, it's all done by committees.
Yeah.
So it's not the same operation anymore.
No.
You can't just walk in and walk out with the deal.
Yeah.
But I guess if you were a real heavyweight, like Steven Spielberg or J.J. Abrams, you could probably do that today because you had so much success behind you. But in the old days, there were still a few people who could give you the go ahead to make a film.
Yeah.
And it would have to be at a reasonable price.
Yeah.
And but you could go out and if you'd done a previous film for them successfully, you pretty much had a home for some more projects. And
Sure.
I loved Mr. Arkoff over at American International.
Yeah.
Because he gave me so many go aheads for films.
Yeah. It seems I spoke to another director some months ago, and he said that in the modern Hollywood, there's buildings on the lots of most studios, and there used to be the writers' buildings where the writers would all be coming up with, all wonderful new material. And he said the sad thing about it today is that those buildings are all full of marketing people.
Well, that's true. And in the old days, they used to have big development budgets, and they would hire writers to work on different projects, develop the scripts. And as it was, now they don't want to spend the money on development anymore.
No.
They just want to buy and remake them.
I think Picasso famously once said, a lot of artists make cake molds and they bake cakes, and it's the same cake over and over and over again. It seems to me that's what Hollywood's kind of turned into a little bit.
Well, the whole idea of making movies is to make something different that nobody's made before.
Yeah.
But today the rule is to make something that somebody's made before and successfully and make it over again. Yeah. And of course, the idea is throw more money at it and you'll make it better.
Yeah.
That isn't always the case.
No.
They spend more money. The special effects are pretty damn good, but the movie is not as good as it was originally because it doesn't have any heart. It doesn't have any soul. It's just. And I mean,
for yourself nowadays, I mean, you're obviously still very active as a screenwriter. I loved your script, Phone Booth. Was very good. I understand there was quite a bidding war over Phone Booth.
Yeah, well, not only was a bidding war, but there were many imitations made afterwards.
Certainly.
They did Panic Room, and they did this, and they did that.
Yeah.
There was a lot of people trapped in an isolated spot.
Right.
And that was a formula that everybody jumped onto after Phone Booth.
Sure.
Before Phone Booth, nobody did anything like that.
No, totally.
So I try to do something different, and and I'm still trying to do things that are different.
Yeah. Well, what's it like for you now, setting up films?
Well, everybody wants to talk to you, but like I said, people generally don't want to do something that hasn't been done before.
Okay.
But I do get calls from people who want to do remakes of my other pictures, and I'm very wary of it because of the mess they made out of the It's Alive.
Right. Yeah.
Even though they paid me an enormous amount of money for the rights, and I didn't have to give them the money back, they did a terrible job on the picture.
Yeah. I mean, because in the past you've been sort of responsible in some ways for sequels of your own material. I mean, It's Alive. You did.
We did 3 It's Alive
series,
pictures, but only because I thought I had something else to offer in terms of telling the story.
Yeah.
But there might be an It's Alive TV series or something that we could sell. A lot of these things are being approached about turning them into miniseries for cable.
Yeah.
And I'm
television seems to be where it's at today.
Yeah. There was a series I created on television called The Invaders, which is still playing over in England and in France, and over here occasionally too. And there's a lot of talk about reviving that series, or making a feature movie out of it.
Yes, but another couple of films I enjoyed of yours. I loved Toby Hooper did the first one, Salem's Lot, and you came back with the return to Salem's Lot. What was that? Experience?
Well, Warner Brothers wanted to start a home video division and make pictures especially for home video. So they told me that I could make a couple of pictures for them. Right. I wanted to make the House of Wax movie.
Okay.
But they didn't want to give me that property. Right. So they said, but you can have Salem's Lot and you could make another It's Alive for us. So Salem's Lot, I knew the book, and I said, okay, but I just want to make my own movie. I don't want to copy the previous movie at all.
No.
So basically all it maintained of the Stephen King concept was that a town in New England that's occupied by vampires.
Yeah.
And everything else in the script was new and original. And even the kind of vampires they were was simply different than what was in the previous films.
Yeah.
I had these all-American vampires that came over like on the Mayflower.
Right,
and,
right.
And to escape European persecution.
Right.
Set up and became very wealthy because they lived so long. You can imagine if you're going to live 300 years, how much money you could make just on real estate.
Oh, totally,
so,
yeah.
And we put a lot of comedy and black humor into the movie.
Right.
And I had a lot of fun making it. And we took over a little town up in Peacham, Vermont, and shot it there.
Yeah.
And we kind of owned the town for a month. Drove them all crazy, keeping them up all night because it was vampires, you know. So I was glad I made that film, and I got to have Sam Fuller in the film.
Yes.
And he's a great director of his time, and he was terrific in the part too. So,
yeah, a great character unto himself.
I enjoyed hanging around with him for a month.
Oh, that must have been.
He was a friend beforehand.
Yeah, that must have been a real treat. I've only ever seen him in clips, and Richard Scheckel made a special on him in the Men Who Made the Movies. He must have been quite something to sit and talk with on a daily basis.
Oh, he had great stories to tell,
yeah.
and he was a good friend, as I said, and I know he'd done a lot of movies for a lot of directors, but they were always one-day parts. He had one or two lines, or he was either an extra, or he really had nothing to do.
Yeah.
But I wrote a nice big part for him, and I sent him the script, and he called me up and said, "But there's so much dialogue. Don't worry, Sam, we'll get you through it. Just get on the plane and come here." Well, frankly, he needed the money at the time, and I was glad to do it for him. He had his daughter was having some cancer services performed, and he was very concerned about her, and the money was going out very quickly.
Yeah.
So he was happy to come here and get him as much dough as I could raise for him, and it helped a lot. And he got away from the troubles that he was going through. He felt better over here, and he was invigorated, and we had a lot of laughs.
Because he was living in France at that time, wasn't he?
He was living in Paris.
Paris, yeah.
Yeah.
But I loved the voice, and he had like the natural spot in his lip where the cigar always sat.
Oh yeah, he always had his cigars with him.
Yeah. Great character, great stuff.
And a great friend, and we just love being around each other.
Yeah, that would have been tremendous, really tremendous. I was looking at the trend of the scripts you've written in recent years, and awful lot of thrillers. And when I was talking to Steve, he said that you were a great fan of Alfred Hitchcock.
Well, I liked Hitchcock's films, and I knew him personally.
Oh, you did?
I spent a number of times with him, and every time you got together with him, it would always be 3.5 hours.
Right.
I mean, you know, he just loved to talk and tell you stories and to tell you scenes from movies that he never used and to tell you the anecdotes about his career in England and all that stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, he had his opinion about everything. He would tell you who Jack the Ripper really was.
Okay.
And he was just quite a bit of fun to be around. I think I enjoyed being around him more, not working with him.
Right.
He was very cruel. He was very cruel to writers. He did not treat writers very well.
Right.
He didn't pay them very well, and he resented them. And since I was not dealing with him as an employee, but rather just as a friend, we had a good time.
Right.
But had I been employed by him, I'm sure he would have mistreated me like he did all the other writers that he worked with.
Wow.
Even John Michael Hayes, who wrote about 5 movies for him,
right.
ended up firing him, and under very unfortunate circumstances. So he was not kind to writers, and he hated paying them any money.
What's the often used term for writers in Hollywood? Schmucks with underwoods, or what is it?
Well, I don't believe that. I think that's a induced misnomer.
Yeah.
I mean, the writer has the greatest job in Hollywood.
Oh,
Actually,
look.
he doesn't.
I
He
think
goes off. He
without a
does
good
it all by
script,
himself.
I
He
think
goes
without a
home
good.
and he delivers them the script, and they're all out in the jungle or in the rain shooting the scenes that he wrote, and they're sitting by the swimming pool enjoying the sun and writing another script. So,
Yeah.
and writers end up making just as much money as directors,
Yeah.
because a writer can write 2 or 3 or 4 scripts a year, and these directors usually takes them 2 or 3 years to make one picture.
Yeah.
So even though they're all highly paid, if you look at the total returns, the writers do just as well, and don't have to be out there in the inclement weather and getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning every day.
Yeah.
So it ain't a bad life.
No, not at all. No. And plus, you really don't have a really good movie without a really good script, do you?
Believe me, if the script is no good, the movie is no good.
Yeah. I remember reading Kurosawa was very much a proponent of that. He said, a great director and a great script makes a good movie, and a good a decent script with a competent director can still make a good movie, but no director can make a good movie out of a bad script.
That's true. I mean, it's like in architectural design. If the design is faulty, the building collapses. I'm always surprised when the directors don't follow the script, because sometimes they've worked on the script for months, and the director comes in and overnight he undermines the entire operation because he wants to put his mark on the picture. And of course, sometimes it's very destructive. And after all the work that's been done, it's just a shame to see it thrown away. But that's the way the system works. And they very seldom fire the director. They usually fire the writer and put another writer on. So it's a correct. It needs to be corrected. The system needs to be corrected. But that's what inspired me to direct my movies. If I'd been treated properly by the people who made the films that I wrote, I wouldn't have had to direct them. But seeing what was being done and the mess they were making, I decided, hey, I won't have anything to show for my life if I don't go out and make my own pictures.
Right, yeah. So
and look what happened. I finally got a movie made about me.
Yeah.
I've been anointed king.
Yeah, totally. And
now, yesterday out at Burbank at the horror show, whatever it's called, a horror-thon or whatever they call the damn thing.
Right.
I was signing autographs and stuff for people, and all of a sudden there was J.J. Abrams.
Yes.
Can you believe it? He come to see me. He wanted me to autograph a stuff cup for him.
Oh, there you go.
As a souvenir. Yeah. And I did that. But can you imagine J.J. Abrams coming out to see me? I mean, I thought that was so wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah,
he got out of the place just before he was recognized and mobbed by thousands of people. He had brought his 2 nephews with him. He wanted to show them all the models and the horror stuff that was there at this horror fest, So and he came by to see me, and that was a real thrill to see him there.
That's really beautiful. Because I mean, really, Larry, you're the last of a particular breed. I mean, there's not too many.
Well, look what happened. We lost Toby Hooper last week.
Yeah. Who
directed the Chainsaw Massacre? He died.
Yeah.
Before that, George Romero, who did the Night of the Living Dead, he passed away. And then Nightmare on Elm Street, he passed away. I mean,
Wes Craven.
Wes Craven.
Yeah.
So I mean, the masses of horror is thinning out.
Yeah.
Of the number that are still left.
Yeah.
But I'm one of the few ones who are still working and churning out material, and that's exciting for me.
That's a great comfort, Larry, because like I told you at the top of the show, as a fan of your work, it's great to not only at this stage take a beautiful tour back through all the wonderful memories of all the cinema that you've given us, both as a writer, a director, producer.
I want to tell you that, in my opinion, and it's self-serving, but I think most of the movies are better today than they were when we made them.
Right.
They have aged very well.
Yes.
The cinematic techniques and the stories and the essence of the movies and the dialogue and the performances are certainly superior to what's being made nowadays.
Yes. And I mean,
Did you ever see Perfect Strangers?
yes. Oh, certainly. Yep.
With the little 2-year-old boy.
Yeah.
I mean, whoever directed a movie starring a 2-year-old boy who couldn't even talk yet?
Well, that's true.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's one of the pictures that is generally not seen too often.
No.
Should be seen. It's and the one called Special Effects with Eric Bogosian
Special
about
effects.
a
Yeah.
crazy movie director who commits a murder. That's
Yes.
my ode to movie directors.
Yeah. I love Eric. He's a great actor. It was great to see him come out and talk about you as well on the film.
Yeah, well, we just did some screenings at the Quad Cinema in New York, and Eric Bogosian came and said some very nice things.
Yeah.
And I hadn't seen him in many years.
Mm.
And it's nice when the actors who've been in your films decide to come out and say something nice about you.
Yeah.
So, I think I've earned it because I treated the actors well and got the very best out of them.
Well, I think that's. I mean, that's paramount. Because like you said, when you first meet them, they're a little bit suspect until they get to know you and get to trust you and.
Well, in most cases, that mistrust lasts for the entire production of the picture.
Yes.
But in my case, it usually lasts for one day.
Yeah.
When we get past it, and then we all have a good time.
Yeah. Because ultimately, you want the making of the film to be a.
Well, it's an enjoyable experience,
Yeah.
and I'm always very flattered when I see these actors on the set, and I say, "What are you doing here? You're not on the schedule to work today." And they say, "Well, we just wanted to come over and see what was going on."
Yeah.
They so enjoyed the experience that they show up even on days when they're not working because they don't want to miss out on anything.
Yeah.
I love that. I love the fact that that turned it into that kind of an experience.
Well, most directors I've spoken to always say, keep them happy, keep them fed.
Yeah, well, I kind of keep them happy.
Right.
Hey, I got to go now, but thanks very much for the call.
Well, listen, thank you very much, Larry, and it's great to talk.
I hope I get over there to Australia again for another film festival.
I do too.
Get to see you in person and say hello.
I do too. I hope very much. Thank you very much for giving us your time. Thank you for being on the show.
Sure. Great to be here. Bye-bye.
All right.